Welcome to my project. Hi everyone, I'm Joey Troxel from DIY Project Guys, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to build this DIY home theater projection screen. Now, I've never attempted anything like this before, but it turned out to be really simple and it completely changed the way we watch our projection TV. Plus, the cost was so cheap we couldn't pass it up. For this project, you just need a few tools like a circular saw and a drill. However, if you want it to be more professionally made, you might want to invest in a Krueger pocket jig. It really gave this project the strength I wanted it to have. I've never used one of these before, but after watching other people do it, I knew it couldn't be that hard. Let's get started. Here's what we'll need for materials. I use 1x4s for the frame. You'll have to measure what your screen size is going to be in order to figure out how many of these you need. I purchased 2 12-footers and 4 8-footers. Next, I got some 120 grit sandpaper just so I could sand the face of the 1x4s just in case there were any spurs. I didn't want them to rip through the screening material. Then I got some corner brackets. If you can find those, that'd be great. If you can't, then just use the L&T brackets. And I've got some L&T brackets to keep the whole thing secure. And then finally, I've got some screen material. I've got the Flexi White from the Call's Place website. The Flexi White is made for rooms that are completely dark. If your room's not going to be completely dark, if it's like in the living room or something and you're doing this, then you don't want to go with the Flexi White. You want to get more of a gray material. They have a whole thing on the Call's Place website that explains which screen materials are for which situation. Mine was the Flexi White because this room is completely dark. I'll put a link to the Call's Place website in the description below the video, as well as a link for all the tools that I'll be using in this video. You can see here, this is my home theater. It's just an extra bedroom that we have in this house, and we've added a movie theater recliner seat with some blackout curtains. We've got some movie posters on the wall. And here's the wall that I'll be projecting the screen on. Right now we just watch it without a screen. But when we do that, you can see the orange peel on the wall during the movie. I've also got a BenQ short throw projector. I'll put a link to that in the description below the video. Now I've cleared out the room. There's nothing in here, and this is the space I'm going to be building on. The first step is to measure the space. I'm not too worried about the size of the screen because the screen takes up the whole wall. I'm just going to measure the amount of space I have to build this screen. So we measured vertically, and now we're measuring horizontally. I'm going to make it just a little smaller on top and bottom. Measuring over, time for a little celebration. Next, I've got my 1x4s out. I've got a table set up, and I'm just clamping my stock right down to the table. This will make it easy to cut and drill. For the horizontal boards, it's simple. We're just cutting them to length. For the vertical boards, we're going to cut them to length minus the width of the top and the bottom board. I'm taking my measurements, and I'm going to use my speed square to get a straight line. After that, we're just going to use a circular saw and cut through the wood. Now we're going to take our sandpaper out and just sand lightly the faces of the wood that are going to have the Flexi White material, screen material pulled over it. Next, we're going to drill some pocket holes using this Krueger jig. It's really simple. There'll be a link below the video for this. You just clamp it down to your table or workbench. You pop in the edge of your wood, and then you just drill the holes right through. This gives you a place to put your screws, and they kind of disappear into the hole so you don't see them. It's a great way of connecting butt joints together. I'm starting with a hole on one side, moving the board over, and finishing on the other side. I've never used this before. I bought it for this video. I know there are a lot of videos of people doing this, using this product. I've never used this before. I just attempted it for the first time with this project, and let me just tell you, it was absolutely simple to use. If I can do this, so can you. And you can see here what the Krueger jig does. It just makes 2 holes for screws where the screws will just disappear. Now it's time to lay out our stock and start putting the frame together. I've put down some moving blankets not to damage the floor. For the corners, I'm just gonna line them up and use a Krueger corner vise to hold them together. One end of this vise has a flat piece that goes up against the corner of the wood. The other end has kind of a cylindrical piece that slips into the holes that you drilled. This will hold it together so you can get the screws in. If there's 2 of you, you may not need this, but if there's 1 of you, it's kind of a nice option to have. We also purchased specific screws, 1.25" butt joint screws from Krueger, to put this together. Now I'm using my battery-powered screwdriver with the drill bit that comes with the Krueger jig to get those screws into the holes. Now we're just moving around the room to the next joint and moving our tools with us. We're doing the same thing, clamping the corner pieces together and then drilling the pocket screws through the one piece of wood into the next. I'll put a link for this DeWalt screwdriver in the description below the video. I use this on all my projects. It's amazing. Once the first one's in, you can take the clamp out and then drill the second one. This was a very easy process, and it went really quick. Now that I've got all the wood put together, it's time to put on the braces. Here I've got some corner braces, some L brackets, and some T brackets. For this project, we didn't use the L brackets, we just used the corner brackets and the T brackets. Here you can see I'm just putting the corner brackets in between the two pieces of wood, and it's just a little bit of extra security, even though they're already screwed together. This will stop the frame from flexing while it's on the wall. And I'm just going to go around to all the different corners and get that done. For the vertical part of the frame, I'm using these T brackets. The 3 top holes go along the horizontal part of the wood, and then the 2 vertical holes go along the vertical part of the wood. It's really simple to put on. And they come with the screws that you need. Again, having a battery-powered screwdriver is a lifesaver, especially when I'm crawling on the floor to do this. It really made quick work of all of this. Now that the frame is built, I want to make sure that it sits on the wall correctly before I hang it up. Next, time to find the studs. I love this stud finder. It tells me exactly where the center of the stud is. There's 3 lights, and the middle one is the center of the stud. I'm just making my markings for the studs on the wall, so I know where the studs are later on when it's time to hang this thing up. Now that my frame's on, I'm going to pick it up and put it in place. I want to do this before the screen material's on, because if there's any issues, I want to fix them right now before I get any further. Here we are just hanging this thing in place, trying to figure out where the screws are going to go on the wall to hang this thing up. If you look closely, you can see there's a red line going across the top of the room, and there's a red line going down the center of the room. We're using a laser level on a tripod to make sure these screws are in a straight line. This will give us a place to hang the frame on. I know other people are using a French cleat to hang this, but I don't have a table saw or any way to rip wood, so I can't make a French cleat. So we're just going to use some screws into studs to hold this thing up. And perhaps I should have worn a shirt that comes down just a little bit further. I'm putting the first screw in on the one side, and now I'm on the ladder putting the second screw in on the other side. You can still see those 2 lines if you look closely. Next, I'm using lag bolts to hold this thing up. Lag bolts have like a hex head on them, and you can ratchet them into the wall, and they're really strong. And since they're in the center of the beam, there'll be no problem holding up this screen. This screen weighs nothing. Next, we're putting it in place and making sure it's level. And because I used a line level on the top, it is. There's nothing to do here. This is it. So I can get a good idea here of where my screen's going to go. And I didn't want the screen to come down below that light switch, because that's the very bottom of the screen. So far, this is looking good. Now for the hard part. The part that I'm worried about is what's about to happen next. Next, we're going to lay out our screen material. Again, this is the Flexi White product from Carl's Place, and I'll put a link to that website below. We're going to lay the white part down, the actual screen part down, face down, and roll it out so the back of it, the black part, is faced up. The way it's rolled is very odd because you have to unroll it backwards. But this is where they have to do it in order to protect the white part. After we've unrolled the screen material with the front side down, we're going to carefully lay down the frame we just built right on top of it. I want to be very careful not to damage the Flexi White material in any way. I only get 1 shot at this. Next, I want to show you the pattern for stapling this thing on. This is right from the Carl's Place website. You can see 1's at the top, 2's at the bottom, 3's on the right, 4's on the left, and then it goes back again. 5 and 6 are on the top, 7 are right, and it just kind of goes around. This is the pattern we'll be stapling. The reason there's a pattern for this is to make sure that you don't get any wrinkles. So that's what we're following. I'm starting here at the top, or the bottom, however you want to look at it, but at the top, with 1 staple right at the very top. I'm going to pull my screen material taut and give it a staple. Then I'm handing the stapler over to Tim, and he's going to do the same thing on the other side. We've got very little room to work here, so it's really important that we don't fall or step on anything here. Tim's making sure that he's got the screen material taut, and he's putting in the second staple. So that's 1 and 2. Now we're ready for 3 and 4, which are on the sides. Next, I'm pulling the material taut for staple number 3, and now I'm headed to the other side to do staple number 4. You can see here we're pulling the material taut and putting in the staple. The rest of it is just to go around and start putting the additional staples in, still in the star pattern. You're adding a few more staples to each side at a time. You're not just doing 1, you're doing like 3 or 4 on the top, 3 or 4 on the bottom, 1 or 2 on the side, 1 or 2 on the side, and you keep on going. I'm just going to follow the pattern until I've got all my staples in. And you can see here, it's going pretty simple. We just pull taut and staple, pull taut and staple. Up until this point, we still didn't have any problems. Now as we're getting closer to one of the corners, I just want to keep going and keep doing what I'm doing till I get to the corner. While we were doing this, I wanted to make sure before we got the corners on that we didn't have any wrinkles. So carefully, we lifted this thing up and I held it while Tim checked it to see if there's any wrinkles. He checked it really good to make sure he could see everything, and he said it looked perfect, so I was happy. Now on to the corners. We're just going to keep working our way around this thing till we get to the corners. And then when we get to the corners, Tim did this by himself, and he just kept pulling it tight and stapling. And then he would fold it and keep pulling it tight and stapling. And he would fold the fold in on itself, almost like you're doing a little paper airplane, right? And this process actually worked. In the end, there were no wrinkles and the corners were nice and tight. We just went around and did this to every one of the corners. Now that the screen is built and the screws are already in the wall, all we have to do is to lift it up and let it sit on the screws. The screw heads are really big, so there's no problem making sure it stays on. And now it's in place. It looks absolutely amazing. There's no wrinkles. The corners are tight. We're both really happy with it. All right, the furniture's back in. Time to enjoy a movie. I've got my favorite flavor of pretend popcorn. I've got the recliner up. I'm ready to do this. Lights, camera, action. Oh look, it's my favorite show. Look how big that screen is. It's the entire wall. And it's absolutely beautiful. Now this is the way to watch movies and TVs at home. You gotta love it. Okay everyone, what did you think? Hopefully you enjoyed this project and got some value out of this. The movie room was nice before, but we could always see that orange peel on the wall through the screen when we were watching a movie. Now we have a beautiful flat picture, just like it was meant to be. This screen totally changed the movie watching experience for us. For those of you that are interested, I'm using a BenQ HT 2150 short throw 1080p projector. This is a pretty small bedroom, and I think we paid like $800 for it on Amazon. I'll have a link for it below the video in the description, as well as a link for the screen material from Carl's Place. Again, I use the Flexi White, but there's a tool on there that shows you which screen material you should use. It's all based on how much lighting is in your room. So that's it for today. Hit that like button, show us some love. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and you'll get notified every time we have a new video. Usually, it'll be on Wednesdays. And please leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts on this. Have you attempted something like this? Are you thinking about it? You know, I thought it would be really tough, but it actually turned out to be really simple. Until next time, if you want something done right, do it yourself.